Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Corporal Nigel Bell. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL and Services Club Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching this ceremony broadcast around Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Harold Harry Abel. Harold Abel was born in 1894 in Leicester, England, to George and Mary Abel. He was the third of 5 children. The family moved to Australia and settled in Brisbane when Harold was 15 years old. By the time the First World War began, he was working as a railway porter in Brisbane and had served for 2.5 years with the Oxley Regiment as part of the Citizens Military Force. Abel enlisted in Brisbane on the 25th of August 1914. He was one of the original members of the newly raised 9th Battalion and was given the regimental number 173. In September, he embarked from Brisbane with his battalion aboard the transport ship Omra. After disembarking in Egypt, the 9th Battalion assisted in setting up Mina Camp and began training. During their periods of leave, Abel and his comrades saw much of Cairo and its surrounds. In January 1915, Abel was transferred to battalion headquarters as a stretcher bearer. The 9th Battalion sailed to Lemnos in March with the other units of the 3rd Brigade in preparation for the Gallipoli campaign. Abel was among the first wave of Australians ashore in the early hours of the 25th of April. In the confusion of the landing and the following days, Abel worked tirelessly, carrying wounded Australians back to the beach for treatment. In mid-August, he reported sick with dysentery and was transferred to Egypt. The 9th Battalion returned to Egypt in January 1916 and Abel rejoined his unit several days later. In late March, the 9th Battalion sailed for France. By mid-April, the battalion was in reserve billets near Rogue de Boux, 1 mile behind the front line at MTR, or Nursery Sector. Intermittent artillery fire was landing nearby. Early in the afternoon of the 20th of April, tragedy struck when the battalion's C Company billets were heavily shelled. 1 shell landed outside a canvas tent, wounding 4. As men went to assist, another shell landed amongst them, killing several and wounding others. Amongst the wounded was Private Abel. He'd been tending to another wounded man when he'd been hit severely, wounded in the stomach by shrapnel. A further shell hit a brick wall of a nearby billet, causing a further 47 casualties. C Company was decimated, suffering 25 men killed and a further 50 wounded. Several men died from their wounds over the ensuing days, one of whom was Harold Abel. He was taken to the 7th Casualty Clearing Station but died of his wounds the following day. Aged 22, he was laid to rest in the Merville Communal Cemetery. Harold Abel's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Harold Abel, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial. Wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.